Hello, beloveds. I wanted to share about my perspective on womb work being the key code for us to access fifth dimensional ascension. And so this message is really deep because for me, the essence of womb work truly has to do with shadow work. We're going to talk about shadow work, specifically how it pertains to the womb. And this message applies, of course, to women. No matter if you still have a womb, if you're still bleeding, whatever phase of your womanhood that you're in, this message pertains to you, as well as to the men. Because men also have a creative center known as the hara, which is all the way down to the lingam and the pubic bone and all the way up to the ribcage. So the whole hara space is the creative center. So, essentially, womb work, womb healing, is shadow work. So the way that the womb works as an energy center, but also as a physical organ, is that it stores information, and it stores memories, and it stores sensations. And these can be both positive and negative sensations. And so when we look at the actual tissues of the organ and how it's connected, the womb, as a physical organ, is also connected to the vagus nerve. It's connected to the sacrum, which is also connected all the way to our spine, reaching up all the way to our cerebral spine and into our skull. And so every thought, every sensation, every emotion that we experience, it's all connected, not just with the womb, but also with the organ of the heart, with our bones, our blood. Everything is all connected. And so specifically with shadow work, when we experience trauma, when we experience rather negative situations that leave us feeling horrible, that leave us feeling worthless, that is coded into the physicality of our body. And it's also coded into our etheric layer of our aura, which then extends into our emotional layers of our aura, our mental layers of our aura, as well as the spiritual layers of our aura. And so all of these different facets of our being, the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, are impacted by the situations that we experience in our life. And so if we experience super dense things that fucking suck and we don't deal with them, they just lay stagnant in our field. And then the more bottled up that the mental and the spiritual and the emotional layers of the aura, the less that the higher frequency codes coming from the sun, coming from the solar system and the earth and the space around us, when all of that is dense, it can't reach through our etheric aura into the different subtle energies in our body, as well as the physical organs of our body. And then it gets even deeper stored and stagnant in our organs, in the tissues and the muscles of our body, and our breasts, especially for women, and our womb, especially for women. And the beautiful thing about the womb is that it's like a record keeper, very much connected to the Akasha of this lifetime, so that all of the information and the frequencies and the energy that we experience in our life as we grow our offsprings, all of that is coded into the maternal line through the womb space. And so you can imagine, if you are super dense, you have a lot of shadow work to do, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of repressed emotions, there's a lot of experiences that are still lingering in your physical body and your emotions, the nervous system, everything. How do you ascend, right? Because in order to ascend, we have to be able to levitate, we have to become lighter. But when we are heavy and dense, that only contributes to either staying stagnant or dissension. And so shadow work essentially is intentionally descending into the experience of our lives, both physical, living experiences, but also emotional and energetic experiences. We descend into the shadows to face those depths so that we can create and cultivate greater clarity in order to elevate. And so fifth dimensional ascension, that's powerful, right? You may or you may not be aware of the different dimensions and, the way that density works in this realm. So essentially, I'll kind of give a crash course on this. I guess that would be important. When you go out, and we're here, I'm in this physical space, I am in the third dimension, which is, of course, if it's 3, lower density, lower dimension, it's not as ascended, it's not as a high. And so as we work up to the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th dimensions, we become lighter and lighter and more buoyant. In this third dimension, very physical space, when we experience trauma, it's stored in the physical. And so if you want to overcome your shadows, if you want to overcome the deep, dark shit that is still lingering in your system, go to the body, right? Move her. Let it out, right? And so the fifth dimension is where we should have our sights on right now as humanity, to descend or ascend beyond the density of 3D. And this is important because as we reach higher and higher to the fifth dimension, the more we come into compassion, the more we come into our truth, the more we become more aligned with the cosmic consciousness, and the more we can really explore the realms of prosperity and pleasure and infinite prosperity and pleasure. And so even though we are on Earth, which is categorized as a third dimensional space, right now we're shifting. Right now the frequencies of the Earth are ascending higher to the 4th and the 5th dimensions. And so when we're in the third dimension, in that density, we are descending into the shadow work. And then once we create more clarity and more space, that is when we ascend into the higher, the 4th dimension, which brings us deeper into compassion and love. And then beyond there, we come into the 5th dimension, which is very embodied in cosmic consciousness. And so when we are doing womb work, especially as women and men, the womb is a very holy place because it not only is a record keeper for our living experiences, but it also holds the portal of the divine and our ability to co-create with spirit and create, whether that be a physical child, or maybe that is an experience, a sensation, a feeling, a way of being, a business, artwork. So the womb holds great capacities for us to create. And so if we want to feel more liberated and more aligned with our creations, womb work should be your focus. If you're currently living in a life that is filled with anxiety, that is filled with tension, that is filled with density, go to the womb. Do the shadow work. What are the traumas? What have you experienced? What have people said to you? What have you said to yourself? Go back there, clear that energy so that you can arise. And when we acknowledge our shadow, the shadow only wants to be acknowledged. It's not here to torture us. It's not here to drag us down. Shadow is here because it wants attention. It wants us to see where there is growth. And there's always going to be shadow. As far as I'm experiencing in this life, like I'm doing the work every single day, there's always shadow. There's always more to look at. There's always more experiences to learn from, right? And a lot of times there's layers, and these layers aren't linear. A lot of time it comes in cycles and it spirals around. And so the more that you move upon that trajectory of the spiral, the more you go in and in and in and in, the safer you get to that core. And as you get to that core, the ascension takes place. And so when I say womb work, it equals fifth dimensional ascension. I am literally sharing that if you want to ascend into greater, higher vibrational peace and wellness and prosperity, you must go to the womb. I identify as the womb priestess because I am here to show you how to access all that is in your inner world, how to do the shadow work, how to be held in shadow work, so that you can transform it and transcend it and rebirth into your fifth dimensional self. I hope that this message was shared with you in divine timing and that you understand what I'm talking about. It's very interesting to take fifth dimensional knowledge and experience and higher dimensional experiences and knowledge that's coming through and transmute it into the 3D and share it vocally. I love you guys. I hope this message resonated, and just remember, womb work is shadow work. And if you want to access greater prosperity, fifth dimensional ascension, you have to do the shadow work. And the best way to do that is through the womb. You can internally work with her, de-armoring. You can dance, you can move your body, you can breathe, you can do breath work, you can pray, you can bask in the sun. There's so many modalities to work with the womb. And you should. It's time. Casting light codes to all of you guys, and blessings upon your ascension. Satnam.